Now we're being recorded so I can talk about this stuff a little better. What I want to do is I want to assign the synthesis analysis essays 1 and 2, as well as show you how to do discussion posts. Sulphur Springs, I may just have to mostly talk about how to do discussion posts. But then you could look, well, because if I show it on the computer, I mean, I can try to show it, but I don't know in what detail it will show up if I pull Blackboard up on the computer. I can give it a shot later, but I don't expect it to go well. I know that doesn't sound very hopeful, does it? But I don't. But it's going to look very pixelated. But I can give it a shot, and we'll see. If it's just impossible for you guys, we'll have you. I do have a video up showing how to do a discussion post on YouTube, and I can make that link to that YouTube available or tell you which one it is. And you can link to that through the Blackboard site if you're unable to see it as well as you'd like to on the projector. But I'll leave that till the very end so it's not an issue here. What I do kind of want to start with is I figured we could start talking about some of this literature, and since I need something to have for an example discussion post anyway, I thought it might be a good time to do the blue readings for this week, meaning the stuff you have to read over the weekend that you won't be able to write about. So I feel it's safe that I can talk about the things you're not allowed to write about first, since I want your original thoughts and opinions for discussion posts on the ones you can write about. And I don't want to. What happened last year is I wrote, or I talked about Charlotte Smith's Written in a Country Churchyard, or Written in a Churchyard at Middleton in Sussex today. And the issue that I had there was everything I said in class became everything that everybody else said in the discussion post. And it was very boring for me to read. And I don't want to like read 12 responses of me reading what I've already said out loud. So I'm going to get the book out, and we're going to talk about William Blake. Maybe not everybody will have William Blake, but you could look up if you don't have it yet. You could probably pull it up on your phone. Page numbers should be relatively accurate, but if you have one of the corrected editions of this edition of the book, then a page number might be off by 1 or 2 pages either direction, I think. But the first one I want to look at, as we're going to talk about, is William Blake's The Chimney Sweeper. And it should be 24 lines long. It should have 6 stanzas of 4 lines apiece. And it's on page 1459. So if you find a poem on your phone that says, "When my mother died, I was very young," then that's the right one. If not, he has 2 Chimney Sweeper poems in this book and out in the real world. So if you find one that doesn't start with that line, "When my mother died, I was very young," you've got the incorrect one. So we're going to take a look at this, and then also the other Chimney Sweeper and London. Then we're going to get the synthesis analysis essays 1 and 2 passed out. Then I'll show you how to do discussion posts over the weekend. I do want to ask real quick before I continue, is there anybody in the room who does not have a copy of the syllabus? Give you one. Is there anybody in the room who lost their copy of the syllabus that they had? Okay, good. 1459 in my book, but it might be a page or 2 forward or backward from that for you. But it's in the William Blake section. You have the newer edition. Flip a couple more pages. Wait, maybe flip backwards. So I think Tiger's further in my book.
Okay, echoing green.
Yes. Oh, did you add to the class?
I don't know if this is the right class.
Oh, what? Let me see. Let me see your roster. This is 1 o'clock Tuesday, Thursday. You should be in 126, which is right next door.
Okay.
Yes. So, good call. Oh yeah, is there anybody else in the room whose name I didn't call during roll and you'd like to get that addressed? I should have asked that question. I apologize. Anybody else? Okay. Let me see your book real fast. I'm gonna look and see like what page number it is in y'all.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not an issue. Maybe I'm blind, but.
See, 1459. Oh, there it is.
You could seriously on my page.
I think you're looking at 1469.
Oh, I must have been.
Okay, 14 to 15. That's cool. Let's see, the Chimney Sweeper. Now, I don't know if that's the right one. It should be the right one. I didn't look at
Yes,
it.
that's right.
Does it begin with when my mother died? Okay. So let's go over it. And I want to hear people's thoughts, so discussion's great. So if y'all can discuss it after, it'll be fun. When my mother died, I was very... Wait, don't I usually do a little British kid voice? I think I do. Do y'all want the British kid voice? Little tiny British kid voice? Okay. When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sewed me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, 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 weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. There's little Tom Dacker, who cried when his head that curled like a lamb's back was shaved, so I said, Hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair. And so he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was a-sleeping, he had such a sight that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel, well, it's coming out Australian, I apologize, who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river, and shine in the sun. Then naked and white are the bags left behind. They rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom, if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark, and got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. That's a very uplifting poem about child labor, isn't it? So nice. There's a little lesson at the end there that there's nothing to worry about. Sure, you're a kid, you're sweeping chimneys, you'll die soon. But right afterwards, you'll go to heaven and have God as your father. So that's awesome, right? I mean, I guess if any of us were in a child labor situation, this is the poem it's trying to have for us. You know, it feels like a kid's story. You know, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack sounds just like a little like old nursery rhyme or something. You know, it's meant for those kids who have no hope in life and trying to give them some. What do you think about that? Do you think it's a nice little, should be a hopeful poem? Do y'all like child labor? I get a lot of shaking heads here. No to child labor. That was pretty immediate. Y'all pretty strongly about no child labor. And these are like little 8, 9-year-olds, I think, 5, 6, 7. This is not like, you know, letting a kid work at 15. That's kind of early. This is like, I mean, he wants to play with toys, but instead he's sweeping out chimneys. You know why they use these guys to sweep out chimneys? Because they're small. You can just throw them down there and hoist them back up. You can't do that with just regular old poor adults. You got to use the poor children because they can fit. How nice, right? Isn't that pleasant? Anybody? I mean, what are your thoughts on it? Does it make you angry? You're like, nah. Not much makes me angry in this world.
It almost seems kind of like satirical, like with the light tone as he's addressing really dark, heavy matters. He's like, oh, you know, your parents told you when you're young and you have to shave your head and you'll probably die soon, but don't worry, you know, just be good, it'll all work out. And it seems like he's kind of like trying to show the irony of the situation. Like it's really hard and like really bad, but he's just like, oh, whatever, you know, it's cool, be good.
I would say that having a light tone, but him not seeming all concerned with it, definitely satirical. I think that one of the great strengths of this poem is that he has another one later, which I kind of want to read right after, because the one that's later, it has more of a honest look at it, and like the way maybe you'd want us to be like angry, and this one kind of gives us our light little version, so that later he has the excuse to have the dark version. And they came out in the same, I believe, edition when it was originally published. So we can take a look at that one now, just a couple pages over to 1465, and it's shorter, much shorter. It's also called Chimney Sweeper. If you can find one that is by Blake that starts with a little black thing among the snow, then you found the correct one in this case. So there's two versions of this poem. This one has the Chimney Sweeper that starts with a little black thing among the snow. Let's listen to how happy this one is. A little black thing among the snow, crying, weep, weep, in notes of woe. Where are thy father and mother, say? They are both gone up to the church to pray. Because I was happy upon the heath, and smiled among the winter's snow, they clothed me in the clothes of death, and taught me to sing the notes of woe. And because I am happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no injury, and are gone to praise God and his priest and king, who make up a heaven of our misery. Holy cow! You go from, you're going to heaven, it's happy times, to maybe God hates us, which is a much darker look at this poem. And I've heard that that's a lot of the, many of the more compelling, I don't know if it's necessarily compelling, but it's going to be weird. I'm going to take my, can you see my feet, Silver Springs?
No.
All right, I'm taking the boots off. I generally do this. I can think better on my literal feet. Well, it's actually socks, but I can move around lighter and feel freer with no boots on. It doesn't appear on camera, so nobody will know, except the recording, which I'm doing right now, which is now forever. So we have this poem here, which is so different from the other, where it was like, we saw just that one line that kind of hinted at something that was truly being displayed as negative, which was, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. So we know that these children are going to die in the previous one, it's said, but they're going to get to go to heaven. It's going to be nice there. Nice little paradise. Nothing to worry about in heaven. This one, though, you kind of understand what's going on, but maybe I should explain one thing that's not perfectly clear, is that they needed children to sweep chimneys, but what's one particular aspect of most children that you kind of have to contend with in order to get the kid to work? That was a very unclear question. What is generally implied by the word children? Some relationship that they have with another person.
They take orphans.
Yeah, they probably would take orphans out the wazoo, but if they can't get orphans, who are they getting? Yeah, they're going to people who have parents. And what they would sometimes do is especially poor parents, what they could do is they could, I don't know if it was a lump sum or if it was a month by month thing, like a subscription, like they're subscribing to your child, renting them out, like rent a center. But they would pay the parents to have chimney sweeper access to their child. And so when he's talking about here, what happened to my parents, they clothed me in the clothes of death. They taught me to sing the notes of woe, because I was happy and smiled among the winter snow. And because I'm happy and dance and sing, they think they've done me no injury. So I'm fine, because they're like, oh, look at him, he's still happy, dancing, singing. And they've gone to praise God and his priest and king, who make up a heaven of our misery. And I don't know that it was necessarily this way long ago. Here's the problem: is I'm more of a reading literature for its meanings and like what it makes us think about humanity. I'm less of a historian. I've never been a huge history buff. So all the little minor intricacies of history that occurred during this time, I don't 100% know. My assumption is that churches, many of the churches we have left over from that era, are very ornate and enormous and things that people would want to keep up. I imagine a lot of the churches that we have around here are more recently built, and they're not built as ornately. Like, think about something closer to like the Methodist church in downtown Greenville or Baptist church that's near the courthouse. It's very pretty. That's a place you'd want to preserve, rather than like the new ones going. Sometimes they're putting churches in like 10 buildings that are in shopping centers sometimes too, or like I don't even know if Cowboy Church has a building. I assume it's like a barn. Did maybe do a Cowboy Church before?
Yeah, but
I haven't. Is it? Would you say this?
Yeah, it's pretty much what you said.
Like a barn?
Corral and everything.
In a corral?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we got
My
all that,
girls
man.
had- they
But
actually
it's-
built an arena.
And built an arena?
Yeah, in there.
But I don't think of those buildings as being incredibly ornate the way we think of churches more these days, where really it's meant for kind of everybody to be able to come to church, right? Those ornate churches, there was probably less room there, and so really I think more of the social elite would get to go to the nice, pretty, ornate churches. And I imagine what happens is many of these people who are poor, once they sell their kid to as a chimney sweeper, now they've come into a little bit of money, and they can afford to maybe be a part of that lifestyle, buy the clothes, get an apartment or a place where you could, at least keep up those appearances. So by selling their kid, they can now look like they have money. And the kid's like, that sucks. I do think it's one of the stronger atheist arguments I've ever heard, or at least one of the ones that's used most frequently, is the idea of like, why do bad things happen? Why should I believe in God if like horrible things happen? And I think that this argument is addressed here, where you have, like, I was one time, I can't remember the guy's name. It wasn't Christopher Hitchens. It was that actor who's a very strong atheist. He was in V for Vendetta. He was the very British-looking guy who had the copy of the Quran in Behind the Hidden Wall. I don't remember the guy's name. Oh, I actually have a video here. I'm not going to show you a video, but I know the name of the guy based on the video. During my cause and effect section of... No, I think it's logic and persuasion. No, it is cause and effect? Yes, cause and effect. Please bear with me. It seems like it's not important, but this name, I can't get rid of it, so I have to know. Let's see. Huh? Stephen Fry. Thank you. That was even faster than... I should just ask people, can you wiki it or IMDb it? Because that does seem like a much more logical choice to getting an answer quickly. So... And I don't like wiki as a research source, but sometimes for quick facts it can be useful, depending on the situation. But yeah, Stephen Fry is one of the guys. I've heard him say that there are a certain type of worm that infects the eyes of children in poor countries and makes them blind, and could cause other major problems. And he has this whole video where he talks about it, and that's one of the reasons he doesn't believe in God. And I thought, well, that is kind of a, if there's supposedly a benevolent God out there, why do these horrible, horrible things happen to people who really don't deserve it? It's one thing if, like, Hitler gets gonorrhea. We can expect maybe God would let something like that happen, but like an innocent child does, it throws a lot of people's beliefs into flux. Last night, I think I saw a preview for some movie or some television show where a person was like in a church praying, and they said, "Don't you dare take him from me, God." And I was like, that is how people oftentimes will view it, like as a personal attack against them if something bad happens to someone innocent. Whereas it very well could just be that, bad things happen because people suck. So it's one of those things where there are people out there always who will suck, whether they're religious, non-religious, and I think that that's really the issue that's being addressed here. But I think that what he's trying to do is strike at the hearts of those people who suck by saying, well, the God that you go and worship and get to worship because you sold your kid, he's not doing anything to you. So it's a way for him to, I think, strike at the heart of those people who might just accept these people into the church and not realize they've done something horrible. All right, really, though, I think based on the tiger, he has that question, as we'll read next time. The tiger questions the nature of good and evil, and how can a benevolent God create something evil, or allow something evil even to be created, or be the efforts of a lack of creation, however you want to say it. But that's a big question here in both of these poems. You can look at it positively, or you can look at it really negatively. Yes?
I don't remember the name of the philosopher, but I was reading one of his works, and he talked about how basically it's like God lets bad things happen, and to even good people, and I can't really remember the argument, but it ended up saying something like
that God is cool because the way that he allows bad things to happen to people even if they are good because crap. Hold on, I'll get back to it.
Okay. Oh no. And she was covering. Since I'm not familiar, Silver Springs, with exactly what happens when we push that other button. All I know is it makes, for some reason, we can't hear anything. I'm reticent to push that other button unless I know for sure what's going to happen. So I didn't push it. But she was talking about, she read some a philosopher recently who, I just can't remember the name of the philosopher, but it was a philosopher who dealt with the same issue, and he had a reason for it. She lost the reason before she got there, but she still plans to get there. And I mean, I guess this is an argument that has to be talked about and will be talked about with the tiger as well. But this is not a class on theology, but the poetry does, for Blake, directly address theological issues. Some of you may have even thought about this stuff, or found reconciliation for it in your own mind. But I've always thought it's kind of funny how, when say something like a tornado is maybe going to come. My wife, I love my wife, will say something like, she'll pray that the tornado doesn't hit us or passes us or, goes to the left or right. And I always tease her, when I know she's about to do those kinds of prayers, because I'm like, yes, God, please let the tornado hit someone else. Not us, but someone else who deserves it. It just seems like such a strange concept. And then the idea that God personally sends tornadoes, I've always thought is kind of a strange, he's, he has the ability to create a universe, right? Let's say there is a God, he has the ability to create a universe that has many, many stars and different galaxies. But where am I going to put this tornado? I don't know, it just seems like a weird, it's all kind of on autopilot, right? I mean, science shows it's kind of on autopilot. There's no, there's nobody's been like, whoa, now that was a particular hand punch from God. That they, it's all weather patterns and stuff. So people take a lot of things personally that I think are just, the world's on autopilot from science, which is kind of a, people get themselves wrapped up in it. But there's always going to be that problem with why do horrible, horrible things, why do children get sold into sex slavery? If there's a benevolent God, or are we mischaracterizing things like sex slavery? Oh my gosh, am I really going to get into this crazy argument that I have? I'm not saying that what. Oh gosh, this is horrible. Please don't mischaracterize what I'm saying. Okay, when I say this, I'm just speaking theoretically. I like to delve into these ideas. That's what's most interesting to me, is what the ideas these poems let us explore. Has anybody seen Schindler's List? Yes, you have. Beautiful film. It's one of the greatest films ever made, in my opinion. Has anybody seen Saving Private Ryan? Yeah. Anybody ever read The Diary of Anne Frank? Elie Wiesel's Night? Yeah. These are all great books, great works of art and literature that we wouldn't have if it weren't for Nazis and Hitler. I'm not arguing this, but a lot of times good things can come out of horrible things, and you wonder to what degree, philosophically, do the ends justify the means? So, let's just say for a second, who do you think the greatest, this could be a very partisan issue, who do you think that everybody could just universally acknowledge as a good person? Maybe we're not going to make him the president, but who is a good person that everybody can kind of agree is a good person through and through? And don't say things like Ellen, because I'm sure there's going to be people who have religious objections to Ellen, even though I think she's a wonderful person. Would you say the Pope?
Yeah.
Pope actually seems like kind of a decent guy. The current one, where a lot of the popes I think are just really hardcore, rule-based. He seems understanding. I don't know. Let's say, who's a good fictional character? We can say everybody just thinks, oh, that's a good person.
Superman.
Who?
Superman.
Superman. There you go. Yeah, he seems never to think a bad thing. Well, this is a strangely horrible example because it involves an alien, and then let's assume that we have a Superman who was born here on Earth and just has those powers. He's a really good guy. Always thinks about justice, right? But this Superman, he was born when his mother was raped as a 10-year-old. Horrible, right? And I'm not saying that gave him the powers, but she became pregnant, somehow managed to live, gave birth to Superman, and we're like, Superman's the greatest thing that's ever happened to Earth. And then people, rape of a 10-year-old's a horrible thing. I would never argue that it's not. But some people have had the philosophical view that if something great comes out of something horrible and evil, is that thing really evil in the first place? And that's what some people have as an argument against the idea that why do bad things happen to good people if God is a benevolent God? Maybe there's something that happens later, or can happen later, that's the result of that. I'm not arguing that. I think Hitler was bad, Nazis bad, killing lots of Jews bad, but great literature and works of art have come out of it. Is there anything inherently bad about... Because I've been actually strangely taking a online course on philosophy, and there is a number of arguments on moral judgment where people disagree about this idea. I think bad things are bad. I tend to go that way. The ends don't justify the means. I'm not quite that Machiavellian. I have some Machiavellian tendencies, but nothing quite that. Machiavellian, I should probably explain that right. Machiavellian said that the greatest good for the greatest number of people, the ends always justify the means. So if we have to pick out 10 people to execute every year in order to, for somehow that makes all of us able to live swell and perfect lives, then it's worth that cost. We just execute those 10 people, we keep going. And I've been watching a show on Netflix with my wife called The 100. Has anybody seen that show before? It's actually pretty good. I thought it was going to be cheesy because it's CW, which is mostly cheesy. But on this show, like, they have to make a choice. Like, the oxygen levels are depleting in the space station, and they have to kill 300 people now, or everyone will slowly die of hypoxia. And so they have to figure out which 320 people do we kill, or should we even do it? But then every week that they don't do it, that raises the number by like 30 or 40 that they're going to have to kill later, or just watch everybody slowly die. So a Machiavellian person would say, well, you have to kill those 300 quickly so you can rebalance the oxygen levels. Because what else are you going to do? Everybody else will be dead. And that's an argument in philosophy kind of for the idea of, if horrible things happen, sometimes it justifies the ends of that. Maybe a Machiavellian would be more likely to believe in God then, because he can say, okay, well, God sometimes has to allow horrible things to happen so that good can come out of it. Do you like the delving into deep philosophy on day one? Is it too much? Shaking up theology. And I'm not up here being a preacher. I'm not going to quote Bible verses and say this is a reason for this thing. But there are things that people have thought about, and it's evidenced here in the literature for hundreds of years, thousands of years, that still people rack their brains over. And let's take a look at London. One more depressing look on 1469 from William Blake. By the way, y'all got some things to add. Y'all can keep adding them. I mean, I'm having fun, but I want to hear y'all's thoughts too. Yes?
I think I kind of gathered my thoughts in a coherent manner. So
yes.
Basically, the philosopher said, that person said that God, he sees God as cruel because he has these good people and subjects them to suffering, pain, and a lot of turmoil just to prove that they still love him. And that the way he sees God putting them through these trials, I guess you could call them, is kind of like a child that's really bored. Like the kids that go outside, they have their little magnifying glass and they burn the ants. That's kind of what he saw it as. He's bored, so he's finding something to play with. And humans and other animals and other living things are guinea pigs for his boredom.
And that was a justification for why it's okay, or is the person saying God is a tyrant?
God, they're basically saying that God is kind of malevolent.
Oh, okay, so kind of malevolent, the opposite. Okay, so the idea mentioned over there was that this philosopher that she was reading, because she figured out what it was he said, is that God is actually malevolent, not benevolent. because he's like a kid with a magnifying glass burning ants. The kid's, he's just bored, so he does things that interest him, even though they're horrible. Because maybe he doesn't think of ants as real people. And that does bring up an interesting argument as well. I've come to this theory that I believe, the reason I still have a belief in God, despite I'm very scientific in my tendencies, is because we have video games. So there you go. Okay, next poem. Then you want a clarification of what exactly that means? Okay, so along your ant line, did y'all know like the theory in like I'm sure there's a theory in almost every version of Christianity that there's a heaven we go to afterwards, right? Yeah. And that's a wonderful place. And there's the idea too that if you were to ever experience God, like your heart would explode. Is that what it kind of says in the Bible somewhere? Like we can't possibly take in the fullness of God because it would overstimulate our senses or something like that. There's no way we could possibly absorb what it is to look at God. So that's why we can't. So that says to me that heaven exists in some sort of hyper reality beyond our own. Like we can perceive of dimension 1, dimension 2, straight line, dimension 3, cube, dimension 4, that cube existing through time. But we can't really think of what the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th dimensions of things are. So there's got to be some hyper reality beyond our own if we to believe in a heaven. So beyond just time, there are other dimensions of stuff. Now, if that's the case, if it's a hyper reality, think about, video games. You ever played a video game? Many people, I think now, even guys and girls. Back in the day, I didn't have a lot of girls, but now we're more equal as a society. So girls are playing video games, and my wife always has. So I don't know who these girls were who didn't have parents who were like, play video games, daughter. My daughter plays tons. Minecraft every day, all day. So let's imagine we make the games more and more realistic, right? Has anybody played a game like Skyrim before? It's impressive because it has lots of these characters and they go and they live their lives and you can go see them and talk to them and there's little stories that they're involved in, and if you catch one, maybe, it turns out this guy was a thief and he stole this thing from this guy over here, so you got to go ask this guy over here if he'll give you money to go catch this thief, and all these little stories that are built in, right? Well, if we ever did it to if we ever got these games to work to the degree, which I think we'd like to, we would have this fully realized universe, just like the universe we have now, or maybe a different universe that's fully realized. I mean, different galaxies, but at least a planet with worlds. And in fact, these characters are so realistic, they actually think they are real, and they just go about living their lives. And it's kind of hard to script their lives, but you go around kind of interacting with these people that think they're real in the world, and you're the character operated by the human on the outside. And our ultimate goal would be to make them think that they are like completely and totally real, but they're just the characters in the game that we've achieved the greatest achievement we can achieve in games, in creating this complete other world. And so that's why I believe in God. None of that says, but what I'm saying is we exist in a hyper reality outside of that reality, right? We've taken and created a universe within this video game that exists on its own and can run itself if I'm not there. But I can kind of interact with it if I want to, and I don't ever really look at these as real, though. They're still video game characters that I created. I know everything that makes them tick. But I exist in this hyper reality. I would never kill a person next to me, but I might kill a person in the game because it's just a game characters, and they're not real. And so you never know. God could exist outside of in our hyper reality, in his hyper reality. We're just a game he came up with. He's like, I just want to create this thing. It's nothing as brilliant or amazing as what I have here, but I want to create this smaller creation that I can come up with that kind of works on its own. It's kind of neat. And it's a really cool experiment. And I'm really proud of my creation. But that's kind of why I think that it's silly to think that because we can't perceive of a hyper reality outside of our own, to think that God is impossible. This just idea has screwed you up since you were 8 years old? I don't know, but then I probably am just making some sort of rationalization because I want to believe that there's a. Now I'm not citing scripture in this stuff. It's just like reasons. There's ideas that I think that it very well could be possible. It's just possibility of hyper realities. And Westworld, the TV show, toyed with this idea of it as well. But that's so that it kind of, if you don't think of us as real as maybe God would be, if God killed an angel, as oh my gosh, what are you doing, God? But God letting one of us die because we're just on a running simulation. I mean, it's just, what do you expect? I mean, we're part of a simulation that's running. So maybe that would address some of the ideas that are problems here in the Chimney Sweeper, that it's bad to you right now. You know, think about even political partisan issues. A lot of people have the issues that or the beliefs that they have purely related to the conditions that they're in at the time. Like, what helps me the best? A lot of people are liberal when they're poor, but once they get a job and start making money and realize they have to pay in taxes, now suddenly they're Republicans. They want to keep the money. You know, and so you might change beliefs based on your current needs. And so I don't remember where that was going. That was somehow related to what he said in the Chimney Sweeper poem about what was good and what was bad.
Well, in economics, we just talked about how self-interest motivates your actions and blah 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 blah. So anything that concerns you, you only care for.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that does get to the idea. The question I had was, what was I doing with this? Yeah, maybe the parents not feeling it was wrong at the moment. I don't know. I kind of lost it. So let's go to London instead. On 1469. So this is kind of another full realization of the possible evils in the world. Not quite as dichotomous. And when I say dichotomous, I mean having two obvious opposites as the other two poems, but it exists. I wander through each chartered street. Chartered meaning sold. People own parts of it. Near where the chartered Thames does flow, even like it seems the river is owned. And mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe. In every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every band, the mind-forged monocles I hear. That's a really neat idea, mind-forged monocles. They're like, they imprison us, but they're completely a creation of the mind, whether it be of those who are the elite above us or ourselves, the poor at the low. How the chimney sweepers cry, every blackening church appalls. And I believe appalls meaning like it essentially clothes it. So the chimney sweepers cry, every blackening church appalls. And the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. And it's not talking literally, of course, but figuratively. So every church is being bought with the sounds of chimney sweepers' cries, and the soldier's blood figuratively running down the walls of the palace. I mean, they fight for your, freedoms here, your niceties. But most through midnight streets I hear how the youthful harlot's curse blasts the newborn infant's tear, and blights with plagues the marriage hearse. An infant's tear, it says down here, it's important to know. Most critics read this line as implying prenatal blindness resulting from a parent's venereal disease by earlier infection from the harlot. Or I think that doesn't always mean prostitute, but I think in this case it does. And blights with plagues the marriage hearse. And I said it says converts the marriage bed into a bier, like a hearse, but I really think that converts the marriage coast into a funeral hearse, I think is really what it's talking about. It's like you think we're getting married, but imagine like you hop in, when you get married, you hop into a funeral hearse instead of like the car with the cans on it, and then you just go straight to the cemetery. Happy wedding, right? So this isn't even, I don't know if it's an even darker look, but it has a more widespread dark look, where it's looking at different dark things happening all around London. And this is less of I'm proud because this is my city, as it is a, good Lord, what's happened to us? This is awful. I think that pretty much, is there any other things people want to, talk about in regards to London? I think it covers basically the ideas we've already dealt with, so I don't know if there's that much more depth we can go into, unless you think of it. Nah. No? Okay. So we'll close up the book for today, but now I'm going to pass out a physical copy here in Greenville of the Synthesis Analysis Essays 1 and 2, and that should be on Blackboard for everybody in Silver Springs. If you haven't printed a copy for yourself yet, you can, or you can just look at it on Blackboard. Let me make sure that I have it there before I, speak out of turn. Let me check out the class. Institution 2323 and assignments, and it looks like it's available, but I haven't plugged the file in yet, so I'll just plug the file in. Browse my computer. Oh, this won't take long. I'm really quick at this. Wait, where is it? I'm just kidding. Assignments, open, and it's now attached. So you should be able to see the assignments on Blackboard. If you've got it available to pull up on your phone now, you could, but if you don't have your phone, I'll talk about it extensively, but you can check it out later, or you could watch the video of what I've said about it last time, and all that stuff is still relevant. I'll also be uploading this video later, but I still think you should listen to what we're saying here and just clarify with visuals later in Silver Springs. So I'm going to have the synthesis analysis assignment pulled up on my computer, but I'll pass it out to everyone that's in this room here in just a moment. Okay, while that's loading. So I'll just pass yours down with these two. Okay. Oh, I just realized too I need to give to Emily one of these info sheets she can fill out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So I'm going to go over the synthesis analysis essays 1 and 2 at this time. If you have it pulled up on a phone, or is there a computer in that room or just a projector, guys?
I have a computer and I have it pulled up. Hey, you can look online if you need to.
Okay, so Ethan, you can just look on with Katrina if you need to look at the assignment.
Oh, okay, he's got it.
Okay, cool. So, got 2 of these, and they're both the same type. So one is going to be due week 3, day 2, and one is going to be due week 5, day 1, and those will be on Blackboard. If you want to know, like when I say week 3, day 2, week 5, day 1, what exactly that means, how that works, or how to keep that calculated, in my calendar that I have at the end of the syllabus, it's got it broken down by week number and day 1 and 2. So you can just look there, and it'll tell you the dates. But the first step is to pick one of the assigned literary readings from the semester. You need to pick a literary reading that is different from the one you've chosen for the critical evaluation. However, you may choose the same literary reading over which you're choosing to do your research argumentation essay. So essentially, you're going to have to write, no matter what, essays about 3 different literary works this semester. One over synthesis analysis essay 1, a different one for synthesis analysis essay 2, another different one for critical evaluation. But on the research paper later, you can write about any of the 3 you've already written about so far. Or you can write about a new one if you come upon something you really like later. So those are the options you have. Now, what I want you to do with the literary reading that you choose, write a synthesis analysis reader response to that particular literary reading. The synthesis analysis is a reader response paper, essentially. Basically, take information from the story and synthesize it with the knowledge and experiences of your own life, as well as analyze reasons why your opinion on the work of literature have been shaped by your life experiences. So not only do I want to hear what it is that you think about the poem or other piece of literature, I I want to know why you think what you think by telling me about experiences from your own life that have helped shape the opinion that you now have. And I'll give an example a little bit later to kind of clarify that, but I'll keep going right now. And think of these questions as you read and as you write. What did the literary reading mean to you? How did it make you feel? How did your experiences shape the way you read the story? Now, you don't have to answer each one of those questions while you're doing the essay. Like, those aren't 3 questions I want answered one by one, but they're just some questions you can think over to help you come up with ideas for this paper. And basically, you just need to write what from the story you most responded to and what in your life made you respond that way. Try to provide compelling thoughts about the themes and subject matter as well that show true insight. So try to go deeper with compelling thoughts, not surface observations, which I'll give you an example of one of those here in a bit. Format's pretty simple. My suggestion is I have it uploaded on Blackboard, this assignment that I just did, and you could go there, click it, download it, delete the first 2 pages, and just use that sample paper as your way to set up the formatting, and just change the name Magnus Baraka to your name, and then the date to your date, that kind of stuff, rather than having to go in and format based on the stuff I'm saying here in format. I do want you to use first person. I don't want you to use any second person, so don't say you or your in the paper, especially not the universal you, which a lot of people use. Like if I was to say the phrase, when you sit down to pee and there's no toilet paper, right? The problem with the universal you is it doesn't apply to everybody. So all the guys in the room just went, what? Like, I've never sat down to pee in like my life. So in using the universal you, instead of saying, when girls sit down to pee, you should have said girls, not you, because you could apply to anybody who's listening. That's why it's best not to use you in a paper at all. Leave it objective in that regard. So short plot summary may be necessary to convey meaning, but must not account for a substantial portion of the response. It should be very small. The length of the paper is 600 words, which I know you'll want to highlight. Everybody's like, okay, I want to highlight 2 things. The one sentence that says what it's about, and then 600 words. Not 800, just the 600, because everybody wants that lower length. And please do not research outside materials for this assignment. Sometimes it's tempting to go get help from other sources to figure out what you should think. I don't want you to use outside materials for these. I want to know your thoughts. I want to see the kinds of things you respond to automatically, not hear what others have said. Works cited pages won't be required for these 2 essays, but parenthetical references to page numbers from the book will be. So if you do reference like a quote or something, I do want you to put in parentheses the page number you found that on, which I guess wouldn't apply as much if you were using it on the web. Now, grading. You will be graded on your ability to present. Bless you? Or is it cough? Okay, I for some reason couldn't figure that out one. I don't know. I couldn't determine what it was. Grade on your ability to A, present ample detail from the story you've chosen. B, explain how you responded to the story. C, analyze, and this is the one people forget, analyze through looking at how the story is written, as well as your own experiences, why you responded in that way. And then D, satisfy the length. When I have the word hints on an assignment like this, it's not just a hint, it's usually the thing that people do wrong that I'm trying to correct. That's why it's always in bold. But do not spend time summarizing the plot or giving a line-by-line analysis of what's happening. I do want you to be sure to include your personal opinions about the meaning of the work, and be sure to relate those opinions and meanings to specific events and details in your own life, so that I can tell why you think what you think, or at least have some justification for why you've come to think what you think. I prefer it not be... I don't want the why you think to be locus, like to have its locus, its center, within the story. So I don't want you to say, well, I think this because if you look at the juxtaposition of these 2 words, that implies the meaning here. I want more of like your thoughts and feelings about like the ideas that are in there, and I want you to relate why you have those feelings on those ideas to experiences from your life. So less of maybe a close literary analysis, because that's what critical evaluation is reserved for, but more of a personal like relationship to the subject matter of the poetry and what it says, or even if you find it beautiful. And I also want you to go for, this is not included in the hints, but I want you to come up with compelling thoughts, not superficial ones. So the sample paper on the next page we're going to deal with talks about Hawthorne's story, The Birthmark, which is a story about a woman with a birthmark who her husband is okay with it at first and then suddenly becomes obsessed with her getting rid of the birthmark and makes her feel really crappy about the fact that she has the birthmark. And she eventually dies in the story because he tries to remove it and it kills her in the process. In that story, I would be okay with you saying, well, this reminds me of like when I was in a bad relationship and he constantly insulted my appearance, or some other time when you were insulted in life. I don't want to see something like, this relates to me because, and I have this opinion because I have a birthmark, just like the character. Which, I mean, if you got like a birthmark like on the back of your thigh that you have to look in a mirror to see and nobody's ever really seen but you, like why is that compelling with the subject matter of the story? Like you have a birthmark but it didn't affect you in the same way it affected her. So I'm thinking like more function than form. Like how does this function, how does your life function in a similar way to the story, is rather than what little piece of content is kind of like a piece of content from my life. Like he eats with a fork, and I also eat with a fork. That's a superficial thing to notice. Then we'll go to the next page, which if you need some help on Blackboard, I've always include Blackboard help with the first paper, just in case people are having issues with it. And if I were you, right after class today, I would maybe go over to the computer lab that you have on your campus just to check and see that you have access to Blackboard. I've had 3 students so far. It was 2 as of this morning, but now it's 3. Tell me that they were on the roster for my class. I verified they were on the roster for my class, yet they had none of their classes in Blackboard. And that's happened more than once. So if I were you, I'd get on Blackboard right after class just to check and make sure you have access. If not, you'll need to go over here to the office, tell them you don't have access, and they'll try to put you in contact with the right people. Has anybody had that issue and fixed it?
Yeah.
And did you go to the office and they figured out what to do?
I found out like the morning before class started, and I was like, I need my classes on Blackboard, please. So.
Oh, okay.
They give you a number for the main, and then there's like a help desk that they transfer you to. And
Did they give you a number for Debbie Hellowell or like the help desk?
The help desk. They
Oh,
transfer
okay.
you to the
And
help
then they
desk.
transfer you to another number, and they're like, oh, what's your problem? And you're like, I
You
don't have
just,
my classes.
then you just give them your
So it's real
information.
quick.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
give them your information, and then they'll handle the rest. It
They
takes
told-
like a day or 2 though.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically.
And Ethan, Katrina, have y'all both verified? I mean, Katrina, I know you do, but Ethan, have you verified you have access to Blackboard as well?
Okay.
Okay, yeah, as long as everybody's got, huh? Okay. As long as everybody's got access to Blackboard, then that'll be fine. But if you don't, go ahead and contact them after class, the office, and then they'll put you in contact with the right people. So let's look at this sample essay over the birthmark real quick. I'm actually going to read it, and you get enough of the plot details that you need from the very first paragraph, so I don't think it's going to be an issue if you didn't read it in 1302. In Nathaniel Hawthorne's story, The Birthmark, a man marries a woman with a small red birthmark on her face. Georgiana had always liked it until her husband Aylmer grew to hate it. Since he was a scientist, he became obsessed with thinking of ways he could remove the blemish so that she could finally be perfect. But I think he misses the point of perfection. That's all the plot summary I need. I mean, you'll hit other plot points along the way, but he just summarized in a couple of lines. That's fine for me. If you just want to set it up by a quick plot summary, make it a couple of lines. Then he moves on. Aylmer said that truth often finds its way to the mind close muffled in robes of sleep, to prove his point that he had a right to hate the birthmark. And note that he did put a page number, even though he didn't have a works cited page, to the reference in the book and where it was at that time. But it wasn't a dream that made Aylmer hate the birthmark. It was his own wicked heart. Instead of showing the truth, I think dreams are fiction because people would react in a different way in real-life situations. Of all the dreams I have had, I cannot think of one that made me figure out the truth about something. Some dreams are too good to be realistic, some are unbelievable, and some are vivid and scary at times, but I never found any truth I could use in my everyday life. So he's not really giving me a true personal experience here. He's tangentially doing it. And when I say tangentially, it's related to the mathematical word tangent, which means a line that touches a circle, but only at one point. So the use of the word tangential means it's slowly kind of there, but not quite. So he tells me he's had dreams, but not what any of those dreams are, so I don't truly know his experience. But he's close. He's told me he has dreams that have never been relevant, and he's getting there. Next, Elmer's helper Aminadab displayed true wisdom, or I don't know why I said true, it was not there, wisdom when he said, "If she were my wife, I would never part with that birthmark." I don't know why I've always read his voice that way. I didn't know. He wasn't a scientist like Elmer. He thought the birthmark was minor and wouldn't want to remove it because he liked her the way she was and how unique it made her. The birthmark was minor, and you have to look past it for who she is as a person and not just something on her face. Aminadab, unlike Elmer, understood that. He didn't relate anything here, but we'll see how he goes further on. Toward the end of the story, Georgiana states that life is but a sad possession to those who have attained precisely the degree of moral advancement at which I stand. Being what I find myself, methinks I am of all mortals the most fit to die. It's ridiculous that she is willing to die over someone else's perception of her birthmark. In the beginning of the story, she found it to be so essential to her character, but at the insistence of someone who finds fault in it, she's willing suddenly to risk death to remove it. Now, there's no way that something so minor should bring such distress. Life is way too short to stress over something so small, as I'm well aware. In high school, I worried about what people thought about my body type or whether I was overweight. In the end, nobody really cared, but it brought me a ton of undue stress. So he's found a way to relate it here to his personal experiences in a very specific way this time. Not just, I've worried about that stuff too. I've worried people thought of me. He gave a specific instance and why he felt that way. So far, he's done just about everything he needs to do to qualify for a good grade as long as he keeps that level of experience and whyness up. Whyness. Over the course of the story, I also found myself becoming increasingly irritated at the importance placed on science above humanity. He's more concerned with getting rid of the birthmark that he can't think of anything else, just to see if he can get away with it. It reminds me of Jurassic Park when the mathematician says something like, everyone was so excited at thinking about whether or not they could that nobody took the time to stop and think about whether or not they should. Hawthorne really encapsulates this idea throughout the story, since Elmer has no justification for risking a human life just to see if he can achieve something. Now, this isn't a true life experience. I'm not really seeing anything about his life, but I am seeing that he did, I guess, see this film maybe when he was a kid or since, and he's connecting it with other outside forms of literature, and that's okay. I mean, I still would like to see at least one or two experiences from your personal life that justify things rather than just a bunch of other pieces of literature, just songs, just films you've seen. But it's fine that he kind of mixed personal experience, with also these themes he's recognized in other works. And he also references in the next paragraph Gattaca, which I guess he assumed it's more likely people would not know what Gattaca was than Jurassic Park, so he gave a brief description of it in case people didn't know. So you could kind of do that thing as well, since, if you reference a song like Srurmer by Black Beatles, I'm going to have no idea what that is, except I do know what that one is. It's such an addicting song. Isn't that the one, the crowd pleaser song? Isn't that right? Yeah, it's so good. It feels like I'm listening to, what it feels like? It feels like I'm listening to if the kids on Stranger Things started a rap group now. Like, it feels like almost like an 80s influenced rap group. I can't explain it. I don't know. I have no, it feels just so chill. Anyways. This also reminds me of Gattaca, another movie I watched all the time when I was younger. Okay, that's how I knew he had done it younger. In that movie, everyone has the ability to choose what genetic features they want their children to have, and it calls into question whether or not humanity should have the right to choose what features, like eye color or birthmarks or even mental retardation, should be given to their unborn children. The movie basically decided that no matter what genes people are born with, whether or not they are supposedly inferior genes, they are equal as people in reality. I really like how he did that too without spoiling the film. Really impressive. Elmer might miss that point, but Hawthorne definitely intends for us to see. So again, he's relating it to a film, not a personal experience, but I still see that he's understanding the themes of the story and thinking deeply about them. I really love this last line. I guess I've always felt, even as a little kid, what Hawthorne felt 2 centuries ago when he was writing this, that science, as much as men might think it can, will never replace God. Oh, like there's a boom. He just hit me in the head with that one. And many of you, if you ever took me for 1301 but not anything past that, might remember that I don't like you to make logical arguments using religious as the basis for that. For example, I don't want people to say, well, gays shouldn't have the right to marry because in the Bible homosexuality is forbidden. Because not everybody believes in God, so how does that homosexuality argument appeal to those people who don't have that same belief? If you want to make an argument against homosexual marriage, you would have to make it from a logical standpoint that does not include a religious belief, because not everybody shares that religious belief. However, here, you're talking about why you think something and what in your experiences or your belief systems has caused you to feel that way. So you're totally welcome to and encouraged, if it's the truth, to tap into your religious beliefs as a reason for like judging a particular poem in a certain way. For example, the problems you might have had with the Chimney Sweeper poem, which you can't write about, so don't. None of the blue readings can be written about. Like if you go on Blackboard, you see they're all color-coded. Remember, you can write about the things that are in green. You can't write about things in blue. And every time you go to discussion post, I believe I've remembered to get rid of all the blue readings, so they won't even be there when you go to your discussion post. But in case I haven't, don't do blue readings. No blue readings at all. So what I was saying with my words was, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, it's fine if you want to use the religious beliefs as a reason, why you disagree with the idea of the Chimney Sweeper, because you don't think God sucks. You think God is wonderful. And that's why you had a problem with the poem, because of that. Then that's fine as long as that's the truth. I just want the truth here. Now, it's a 684-word paper from the start of the first paragraph to the end of the last. And the grade was a 98, because he really thought about some compelling things, and I was impressed how many directions that he took it, and a really nice line at the end. I don't want you to include your word count. I can figure that out on my own. One less thing you have to worry about. And I try to include the shortest paper that's ever got what I consider to be an elite grade on a paper. Anything that goes 96 or above, I tend to consider an elite grade, meaning, whoa, that's pretty impressive. So he got a 98, which is right up there. I don't know if this means quality's going down over time, or if I'm getting softer or what. But now I'm looking at this, and I really feel like I would have given it a 99 these days. I don't know if like my standards are going down or what. But anyways, that's the synthesis analysis. And the reason I wanted to assign it first, before talking to you about how discussion posts work, is I really think if you look at the synthesis analysis, it's like one big giant expanded discussion post. Because a discussion post, you just have to, in 100 words, give your original thoughts on the literary work, which is not very long, and I'll show you in just a second, by reading it out loud so we can all still participate. But the replies only have to be 50 words, so they don't have to be that detailed, but they're still kind of related to just your thoughts and feelings on the literary works. So they're very much like the synthesis analysis essay. This is like a big version. So the discussion posts are like a small version. So I'm going to pull up on my computer, but I want to simulate the experience across classrooms. Pardon me. So I'm not going to put it on the projector, especially since I need to see them. So I'm going to talk about the kind of responses that I'm doing. And if you wanted to see clarification, you could look at the video later. I'll make sure and get y'all's video uploaded sooner than every other classes, because in y'all's case, it's very necessary. Yes? Oh, is it not posted now?
Yeah, it is. I got a note. I think that's. Did you just do it a minute ago?
No.
Or right before class? I have a note. Discussion 1N0.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
I never got one for
Oh,
discussion one.
I have it set. I have it set to where I know I'm always going to talk about the discussion post in class
Okay.
on week 1, day 2. So I have it always set to like unlock, I think, at noon.
Okay.
So that way when I hop on there, because I don't want people doing it before they really know what to do. So that, yeah, it should be addressed by now. So I'm on my Magnus Baraka profile, and I'm going to go to discussion posts, and I'll just tell you what I'm seeing. You'll see two things. One that says discussion post 0, one says discussion post 1. Discussion post 0 is very simple. You don't have to even think about the 150 word limits for original posts and replies. I just want you to introduce yourself, say, hey, this is my name, maybe this is what I like, interested in, maybe this is what I do, what you want to get your degree, and all just basic stuff, but you don't have to give your whole life story. There's a few basic details people can kind of connect with you in class, and I mean, just saying something like yeah, I work at, McDonald's in Quinlan. Oh, I work at McDonald's in Greenville. Like, and y'all could end up having an excuse to like maybe always want to reply to each other because there's that weird link that for some reason you make that. You now feel that you can relate on literature because you both ring up burgers for people. But that's how people think, so I mean it'll work. And now the other option is to go over here to discussion post 1. This is the one that's going to be a little harder. Discussion post 1 for Smith, Blake, and Burns. Technically, you only have to do an original post and your replies on one literary work. So you could just pick one, like Charlotte Smith's Written in the Churchyard in Middleton, Sussex, and just do that one if you want. I mean, I prefer if you original posted on one, then replied to 2 different literary works. But if that's not able to be done, I mean, I understand. Or you're only required to write about one. I'm just more impressed if you write about multiple. So what you'll do on this is it tells you the readings that you can do, so it'd be good to like go and read them then before you click it, and then click. When you click, and I haven't done this before on this account, I'll just turn it real briefly. And I'll unplug it. But some of you can see that forum discussion post 1, it makes you create a thread before you ever can post. This is going to be so weird. I'm going to try to do this. I don't know if that's really close up. Can you see it?
Yep, create a thread.
You can read that?
It says discussion post 1. It's blurry, but yes, we can see it.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, there's only a couple things I got to show you, so now I know I can show you that. So that's helpful. But I'm going to click Create Thread, and I'm going to, in the interest of time, plug in some... I'll just talk it out loud because that's easier. What I always want your subject to be is your name. So I'm going to put Magnus Baraka here because that's my fake name. And I really would like also if you do maybe the literary work you're writing about for the subject of your original post. And you always have to make an original post before you can see any others, and I like it to be that way because that way nobody copies each other inadvertently. So let's say I'm doing Chimney Sweeper. And I'll call it Chimney Sweeper 2, just in case there's a little confusion. So what I'll do is there's a little word count in the bottom right corner of the box. Like right down here in the bottom right corner, there's a little word counter. It'll count your words for you. I don't know if you can see this box, but there is a little word counter in the bottom right corner down there. This is so fun. This is fun. I get to, it's like show and tell or something. So I'll type out a original post, and I'll say, in fact, I'm not going to write about the Chimney Sweeper at all. I'm going to write about Suicide Squad, the film, because I feel like that's almost more relatable. And I don't know if I can come up with really compelling thoughts immediately on Chimney Sweeper, even though we talked about it. So I'm going to go over to my teacher account here and just lift the comments I've already worked on over here. Go to 1302 class for that. Somebody seen the film Suicide Squad? It's that terrible movie.
Yeah.
With all the DC Universe villains. So I'm going to go to discussion post here. Go to the discussion post threads. Look at Magnus Baraka here. All right, so Magnus Baraka is going to post. First of all, let me say that I had significant problems with this work of literature. I did not like the portrayal of the Joker after having seen such a perfect one in Christopher Nolan's version of Batman. The fact that the Joker would even have tattoos drives me insane, because that means an anarchist has decided to permanently adopt an ideology which is completely illogical to the idea of anarchy. If you have someone who believes in anarchy, they can't adopt an ideology permanently by tattooing it on their arm. It makes no sense. I think the people who made this movie should seriously consider whether to ever make another one, because this effort was a step backward in a society of superhero literary progression. So this person's very angry about Suicide Squad. And that's 100 words long, and you can look. It's about 7 lines long if you're typing in the box, depending on your level of zoom. But it's only about this long, you can see.
Okay.
Not very long. And I've also got the number of words referenced in the syllabus for you where you can see the 2 paragraphs that are roughly what you need. And then I'm going to hit submit, but then it'll let me reply to other posts. So I'd like you not to reply to your own post, but reply to others. But Magnus Brock is the first one to submit, so he has to reply to himself. So he's going to reply right here, and I'll just quickly read you the 2 replies. But it'll be an example you can go look at. Just never actually reply to it. And I'll copy this one. He says, I see what you're saying, but did you notice how Harley Quinn was wearing that outfit? Like, it made her really attractive. Also, Will Smith was in it. He's pretty cool. I didn't like the alligator guy, though. That made no sense. And then at that point, I may not even awarded points, but he finally said something relevant in terms of the story. And when Climbing Guy wasn't given a background, it was obvious he'd die immediately. And I was like, it's a good point. Like, he didn't get a background for one of the characters, and so it was obvious they were going to die early. So a good point. So I would award points on that. And now somebody else replies to him. But let's pretend that he's getting all of his counts right now. And they said, and so that's really not the best reply. I don't think the one that I just read, but this one's pretty good. He says, I don't know. I didn't think it was that obvious about the Climbing Guy. I thought it was more obvious that the Joker didn't die because, hey, he's the Joker. And why would you kill off such a huge main character before Ben Affleck has had a chance to beat the crap out of him yet still lose some point in another film? So then we have, 3 replies. You have 2 replies. You have an original post. That's all you have to do. If you ever just do one original post and then no replies, it won't show me it's ready to be graded. And so I will never unlock it for grading. Same if you just do an original post and 1 reply. I will never see it, never unlock it for grading. So you've got to be doing all 3 every time, the original and 2 replies. Otherwise, it won't let you. So that's how you do it. That's where you do it. There's also a quiz over the syllabus in the quiz section. If you go to quizzes, and that's over just the syllabus, have it right next to you. I suggest when doing it, it's going to be your best possibility of success. Has anybody already taken that quiz? Did you get 100, I assume? Okay, good. So it's good. There were no errors in it? Okay, good. But that should be it. I'm sorry I went 2 minutes over. Y'all have a great weekend. If you have any questions, email me. Hopefully that will work.
Your conference is scheduled to end in 2 minutes.
Yes, made it.
This says
Uh-huh.
that the essay 1 is due week 3, day 2, but
Oh,
on
your
here,
balls are right here.
right next to day 1.
Oh, that's really cool. I always will default to a later date. So,
Day 2.
yeah, day 2. And I think that originally I put week 3, day 1, so it would be at the same date as my 1301 class. But they literally have their next essay assigned to the next time. So they have to have it by that day. Whereas y'all don't. Y'all just one after the other, so it's not a big deal. So week 3, day 2 is fine. Yes.
Essays on.
So we picked
Only
one
the
story
ones
of the
you
green, and then I can't remember. Did you want 2 examples?
I saw
movies or
Friday
books or
It's really just anytime you mention a new idea
It's so pretty.
about the story,
I don't like it.
give some explanation for why.
Like an example, like the outside example, like like
That's the
Jurassic
one we
Park
just
and stuff. Did you want?
You don't have to do other literature. You can do just your personal life experience.
Okay.
You never have to do that.
Yeah, some came out.
Oh, okay, so that wasn't like
No.
like we
No.
had 2.
Yeah.
No.
So right
Okay.
There was no like actual.
I'm feeling
Now,
like
if you do something where you didn't provide enough, then I'll tell you.
Your discussion
You need
about
to
one
watch
of them.
Okay.
And then you send
your
replies.
revision.
Yes.
Okay.
I know that I have one.
Alrighty.
I don't know what they are.
The sun came out and just started.
Oh, and Emily, the last page of the syllabus, you'll need to sign that, rip it off, and bring it to me next time. Along with that info sheet I made. You're welcome. Oh, I never asked if there are any questions there. Does any of these new people who aren't in my class at all have any questions?
And then you also have your quizzes. Like,
No?
once you finish
That's good. That's a good thing. Did y'all mute the mic? Not if you.
Conference is now over. Goodbye.
Never mind. I can't. We can't talk anymore. All right. Miss you guys. Creepy teacher just said miss you. Okay, so
yeah.
I just turned and I looked and like it's completely new people and I was like, that's weird.
Whoa. All right, see y'all next week.
See you next week.